fastest show in sports.
I guarantee you there are people in this show, watching the show, listening to the show, who do not know who Colin Kaepernick is. Now, it's only been 9 years, and back in 2016, this is a guy who created a furor, a firestorm in the National Football League and in sports because he did something he felt was socially correct. Now, that's going to move forward here to 2025, where recently Spike Lee was creating a 4-part docuseries about Colin Kaepernick. It was going to be shown on ESPN. Not anymore. We're going to tell you why in a minute, but first of all, for those of you who are not aware, learn just a little bit about Colin Kaepernick, what happened, and why, to this day, it is still an issue that people want to argue about.
Over the land of the free.
Overnight, San Francisco 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick refusing to stand during the national anthem again. This time, he took a knee right behind hundreds of service members being honored on Military Appreciation Night. As the crowd and players stand, you can see Kaepernick kneeling on the sideline. Teammate Eric Reed joining him.
Going to stand.
And he's receiving heavy boos here.
The crowd booing every time he took a snap.
He's entitled to his opinion. We fought for that. I just think he's a jerk.
And now the quarterback sparking new controversy for wearing these socks showing police officers as pigs. Those scandalous socks drawing criticism from law enforcement officials across the country. Police in Vermont tweeting, "Wealthy, privileged person's free speech dehumanizes an entire group of human beings." Sound familiar, Kaepernick?
The socks that were worn, did those not seem negative?
No, that was once again, we have cops that are murdering people. We have cops in the SFPD that are blatantly racist. And those issues need to be addressed.
Players from other teams like Jeremy Lane from Seattle are joining Kaepernick in his seated stand, begging the question, how far will this go?
At this point, I think it will continue to be taking a knee. As far as how long this goes, I'm not sure.
Kaepernick was destroyed by people in every form of media, social media, in television news, newspaper, makes no difference, but he was destroyed because he had taken a knee during the national anthem and had dissed, if you will, had disrespected the United States of America. He stood against cops. He stood against the military. He stood against everything that America is good for. Part of the reason that that happened is because certain people decided to make this part of their political stance. Now, what he did was political, no doubt about it, but it's in what happened after Kaepernick did this and in the years that followed that tell us a little bit about not only what he did, but how he became such a pariah.
I can't look in the mirror and see other people dying on the street that should have the same opportunities that I've had and say, you know what, I can live with myself because I can't if I just watch.
All of a sudden, it became a point of controversy.
I don't think it helps the cause any.
You have to stand up there with your team and understand that it's this game and what's going on around the country is bigger than just you.
You're concerned that it can be seen as a blanket indictment against law enforcement in general?
As far as what? I don't really understand what you're trying to get at.
People getting murdered by police. I mean, do you think that it seems as sort of an indictment against police?
There is police brutality.
Yeah.
People of color have been targeted by police.
His message was hijacked, and it became about everything except what he was protesting.
And he's receiving heavy boos here.
Colin made it very clear from the beginning that his protest was not about the military, it was not about the flag, it was not about the anthem, it was not about anything except racial inequality and police brutality against people of color.
I think a lot of guys didn't understand. Then there were other guys that were totally on board.
One person who decidedly was not on board was Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump. He said this on a radio show.
I think it's a terrible thing. Maybe you should find a country that works better for him. Let him try. It won't happen.
And by this time, it seemed like everything was seemingly adding fuel to the fire of these protests. Like, for example, President Obama was asked about Kaepernick's kneeling during the G20 summit.
He's exercising his constitutional right to make a statement. I think there's a long history of sports figures doing so.
Which brings us to present day. Spike Lee creating the docuseries on Kaepernick. Everything's fine. Well, not everything's fine because Kaepernick had final cut on the series, and he and Spike Lee were basically at odds about how the series was going to come out and what was going to be said. So there was a little bit of an argument going on between them. But then Mike, ESPN comes in, and guess what? ESPN just happens to be in bed even deeper now with the National Football League than they ever have before. And Spike Lee makes the announcement that series is gone. It won't air. And when he was asked why, he said, I'm under a non-disclosure clause. I can't say anything. So the series is done. It's ready to go. But ESPN and the National Football League killed it. Mike, this is, before we even get down to some of the political issues that are involved here, this is a great example of catch and kill. I mean, ESPN and the NFL know exactly what they're doing. They want to bury this guy. They buried him before. They blackballed him. They kept him out of the National Football League because of what he did. And it's still continuing to this day. Now his career is over, and now it's just secondary material that most people go, well, we don't care about Colin Kaepernick. You should. The guy stood up for something just like they did at the Olympics in 1968, and he was punished for it for the rest of his life.
Well, you took the words out of my mouth. You know, Tommy Smith and John Carlos, American sprinters in 1968, raised their fists at the conclusion of the 200-meter medal ceremony. Well, during the national anthem, and they had black gloves on it, and it was the Black Power protest. And little side note, I did a story on the guy, the third man on the podium, Australian Peter Norman, who they told what they were going to do as they prettied up for the ceremony, and he wore an Olympic Human Rights Project thing on his back, and he supported him, and to the end of his life, they were his pallbearers. There's a white sprinter from South Africa. It's a great story, but the bottom line is, you're right. It was a protest, and whatever you thought about it, here's where I'm going to disagree with you. And look, as a former employee of ESPN and somebody who was there for 3 years and worked for the Undefeated, the race culture sports site that became anscape.com, and they still put out great stuff, I will say that I have no problem taking down the network anytime they do something I don't like. I still harbor a grudge that my contract wasn't extended, but I also know that I know Spike Lee very well. In fact, I got Spike Lee to be, I guess this would put me in the woke category, but like I helped co-host a Hoops for Harris identity Zoom call last year, with another comedian named Alonzo Bowden. We raised a few million. I got Spike to be on the call because I'd known him since I would cover the Knicks for the New York Times. I haven't talked to Spike about this, but I can tell you that if Colin Kaepernick had final cut and he wanted it to be about Colin Kaepernick, and Spike Lee wanted it to be about the black athlete in America and used Colin Kaepernick as a prism into that as part of it, I can tell you Spike Lee didn't want to see the movie, the series that Colin Kaepernick did. And I think that was a lot. I think that was a much more about why that series died. And I've only learned this in the last couple of days. Than ESPN's 10% ownership now, the NFL's 10% ownership in ESPN right now. They might, and I wouldn't be surprised if eventually Spike finds another vendor and cuts Colin Kaepernick out of the deal altogether. Because let's be honest, Spike Lee doesn't need Colin Kaepernick right now. Kaepernick needs him. And I will say this about Colin Kaepernick: he stood for a great thing. Just look at the numbers. Anybody that says there's not systemic racism, there's not more black people getting profiled in America by law enforcement, they're wrong. There's great cops. I love cops. I have a cop in my family. There are good cops. There are also bad cops, and many of them, are racist. So let's not forget that. But let's also talk about this. Colin Kaepernick has got to be the most, what do I want to say? He might be, Ed, the most reluctant activist I've ever seen in my life. Like, does anybody know where he is? When was the last time he said anything? No. I'm not saying he had to be Muhammad Ali, he had to be Jim Brown or Arthur Ashe, but I don't even know where he is. I don't even know, like, when was the last time he spoke out about anything?
I think he popped up recently looking to try another comeback again, and that didn't last long at all. And I believe that he's involved in a number of charities. See, but I do believe he's involved in a number of charities that are based out of San Francisco in the Bay Area.
Okay, that's good.
But he does not. But you're right in one sense. He doesn't make a big deal out of it. Maybe Colin should use his celebrity. I mean, it's there. But then again, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he got hammered so bad by the National Football League and everybody else in this, crushing his career, that he would rather move in the shadows instead of being out there. Because again, it comes down to that point. The NFL did kill his career. There is no doubt about it whatsoever. They did it with the help of the media. They did it with the help of Donald Trump. They did it with the help of everybody who thought all of a sudden that this is a guy who is dissing the American anthem, when he was not actually doing that. He wasn't disrespecting the anthem. He wasn't disrespecting the military. None of it. And as a matter of fact, Barack Obama said it at that time. At that clip we played, he said, "We fought for that. We did.
Great.
We fought for the ability for him to say that. He did it peacefully, quietly. He made his point. But thanks to the politics of the time, he became a pariah and destroyed his career. Maybe at this point he just wants to back off and do it in the background."
Yeah, did he have his career destroyed or did he destroy it? I'll say that there was probably a little bit of both. He had opportunities to show up at a workout. He only wanted things on his terms. And didn't he reach a settlement with the NFL at some point?
I believe he did. I believe he did.
So if you,
but it's not enough. So if you were,
okay, good. If you were, and good, I'm glad he got his money. He got $1 million for a Nike commercial when putting your finger in the air as a corporation and seeing which way the social winds were blowing. It was, you didn't go broke if you were woke. So Nike made the commercial and they became all of a sudden this, which I loved. I mean, that was my brand. I was woke before they even had a name. It was called caring about people that didn't look like you, Ed. It wasn't just being, it wasn't being liberal about everything. But here's the deal. Colin Kaepernick, if he was truly down with the cause, you take the NFL to trial, you get discovery, you find out emails that there was collusion, and not only do you make more money, but you make it clear legally, factually, that the NFL did collude against you and your talent. And they just didn't want, you were a polarizing figure like Craig Hodges.
You and I know that that's nearly impossible, Mike. You can say that and you can talk about that in a legal sense.
John Gruden is doing it now.
There's not enough people who do it, though. There's tons of collusion in the National Football League and other sports. And you know that the owners will pony up. The owners will shut up. Everybody will walk away from it. Nobody will want to say anything. You'll spend 10 years with Discovery, and you'll never really get to the bottom of it. They blackballed this guy.
Okay, well, what about John Gruden? John Gruden, racist, misogynist, clearly exposed in the emails, is going to get an actual trial. Is going to court, and a Nevada Supreme Court judge okayed it, where he could actually get discovery through the NFL. And if those emails come out, and the NFL leaked the emails between he and Bruce Allen, the former Washington GM, who also was at Cretan. I think that it's going to be damaged. Maybe you're right. I don't know.
Think there's all I know is
here's what I would say. Okay. Here's what I say. Colin Kaepernick was looked at the time, as he should have been, as this change agent, as part of the modern renaissance, the social conscience among athletes. LeBron probably doesn't get credit for this enough. LeBron probably started it. He and Dwayne Wade decided to wear hoodies after Trayvon Martin was killed in Miami. People forget about it. That was like 2013 or something. And that was a big deal. Like, they were basically saying, this law enforcement guy, George Zimmerman, he's wrong. We're supporting the black guy that would just happen to be in the neighborhood and
remember too, George Zimmerman was not law enforcement. He was just a security guard.
Yeah, he was a security guard, but it was sort of against law enforcement, that statement by the
Yes.
Heat, and it was basic. But and so I think that was great. LeBron stuck his neck out there, but so he everybody thought he was a change agent at the time. Colin Kaepernick, looking back, I think he was part of the story of the modern social conscience of Renaissance. The modern Renaissance social conscience among athletes. I don't think he was some seminal guy or some major
No, he
change
had a
agent about the
platform.
whole thing.
He had a
Yeah, he had a
platform. He
platform,
had
but
a national
he
broadcast
wastes.
platform on a National Football League team, and he
But he
knew.
wasted. But now, like, what is he doing now? Like, to me, I don't know. The fact that he wants this to be all about him, it just
Well,
says
but we
so
don't know.
much
We're
about it to
supposing
me.
that. We don't know that he wants it to be all about him.
Well,
We're kind of guessing why this thing and why he and
I've been
Spike Lee
told
went
by
at
a
it.
couple. I've been told by a couple people that worked on the documentary that that's the case. Not Spike Lee. I haven't spoken to him, but I've at least two people who were interviewed for the documentary and have participated in its creation have said that that's what the main gist is about. Now, is it
Then if
still
that's the
catch and
case,
kill?
there's an entirely different discussion that goes on here. Because if that's the case, and he doesn't want to make it about the social issue, which he seemed to be so important about back in 2016, well, then we got a problem. But let's also remember that you and I are talking about people that we talk to here. We don't know. I don't want anybody to
That's
come out
true.
and say, you guys said that Colin Kaepernick is just doing it for himself. We said that's how it appears and how it might be, but we're not out here
Well,
making
that's
a
what
blanket statement.
Yeah, you're right. I haven't spoken to Colin Kaepernick or Spike Lee himself.
I'd love
I
him to
will
answer
say
the
that
question.
I will say that I believe, based on the conversations I have had with two
Okay.
people, that had some creative powers in the documentary, and were both interviewed for it, by the way. That those people believe that this is and not Colin Kaepernick doesn't want it to be about social justice. He just wants Colin Kaepernick to be the man, so the main social justice component of the whole thing. And it's like anybody that looks at it from outside that studied this stuff for years. I mean, Muhammad Ali is still my hero, not just as a boxer, but as a civil rights guy. Anybody looks at it from outside, he's a small part of the picture. Colin Kaepernick is not the picture of athletes who put their neck out there and pay for their careers with it.
But does this not
He got
lead?
money.
Yeah.
He got money
Does this not lead
from
though to
Nike.
another part of the conversation,
Nobody was
Mike?
giving no. Go ahead. Sorry.
That's okay. Does this not lead to another part of the conversation, which talks about how Colin Kaepernick made a statement, and he made a statement. He didn't make it against the military. He didn't make it against the American flag. He didn't make it against America. He was specifically targeting law enforcement. But because of people like Donald Trump and others, they came out and they made it that he was basically disrespecting America. And the public, Mike, there are people out there who fell for it. They ate this red meat like it was being served up with a salad, baby. They were all over it because here it is. And let's be honest here. This was a wealthy, this is how they saw him, a wealthy, black, entitled man who suddenly was speaking out against America when America gave you everything. Look what happened here. You're a black man making a big fortune in the National Football League. You should be proud of this country. He was proud of the country. He was pointing out something entirely different. At no time did Colin Kaepernick ever say that he was doing this against the military. At no time did he say he was doing this for a political reason. At no time did he say he was doing this against America. But Mike, there's that faction of people out there who just believe what they're told. And people like Trump and the right-wing media came out and said, this is why he's doing it, because he hates America. And the suckers fell for it. And they're still falling for it today.
I'm giving you my Brian Gumbel pencil.
I know. I noticed that right away. It's very good. I like that. But am I right or wrong?
I'm conflicted on this because I agree with you that mangling his message, using using him as a referendum and his kneeling against the anthem as a referendum on patriotism in America, which which our current president and others did at the time, was wrong. And the whole stick to sports, damn it. Well, guess what? Mike Pence left a game in Indianapolis because somebody kneeled on the sideline for the Colts or somebody.
See, and there it is. It's the same thing. We're going back 9 years to the same bullshit all over again. And he just drags it up. And there's that portion of America that said, hey, did you see what Vance did? He left the game because some kid was out there pulling a Colin Kaepernick and he was kneeling against the anthem because he hates America and he hates veterans and he hates football. You people got to stop falling for it. You're not that stupid. Be smarter.
Well, and it's funny. It's fun. It's fun. And like Colin Kaepernick did get it from all angles, including the black community, by the way. I have a friend who happens to be very famous, an athlete. We had lunch in Maryland at some casino called Maryland Live, and about 8 years, was it 8 years? About 7 years ago. And I go, what do you think about the whole Kaepernick thing? And he said, man, I don't like it. And I go, what? And I go, your politics real conservative? He goes, it's not that. He's not one of us. I go, what do you mean he's not one of you? He goes, he grew up with a white family and he was adopted and like he didn't grow up like me. And I'm like, hold up. Like the guy identifies black. If you're half black, most people identify black. I'm not saying that you have to or you should, but when, there is no such thing as DWW in America, driving while white, okay? If it is, you get out of a ticket. DWB is driving while black in America. There are still people of color who get pulled over because of their skin pigment, and that's wrong. And Colin Kaepernick was protesting some of that. That's fine. The part I don't like, Ed, is this notion that somehow everybody is still against him and we need to keep him down again. No, this is about Colin Kaepernick doesn't want this to be about the big picture of social injustice in America. He wants it to be about. I'm saying that.
Yes.
What are they going to do? Sue? Ed, you have money. I don't have any money. They can sue you.
I live in the States. You live in Panama, big guy. You live where the money flows. So don't tell me that.
That's all, folks.